what I found in my relationship with the Lord is there's so many times that I was not consuming enough to sweat it out my pores.
Mm.
And so in my leadership, in my business, in my mentorship, all these things, I was trying to tell people stuff that I hadn't consumed enough of to be able to have it pour out of my pores.
Yeah.
And when God got me with that one, he just let me know there needs to be an inlet to me. And when there's an inlet, the outlet will not be conscious. When I don't need to be conscious to tell someone about Jesus.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
it's one of those things where if I intake it enough, if I have a relationship with him and I spend enough time with him, and I spend time in his word and, I read the word and the word starts to read me, then it starts to sweat out my pores. And that's what I would ask every one of your listeners is if people aren't asking you about the Lord or asking you about your leadership or then you're going to be forcing it on them. And then you're going to become that dude on the corner with the sign saying, you're going to go to hell. And nobody likes that dude anyway. Don't be
Totally.
that dude. Don't
Don't
be
be
that
that.
dude.
Hey, this is a quick shout out from one of our awesome sponsors. Check this out.
Check out this awesome video on this brand new product called Tornado Wind Turbine.
Tornado, foldable micro wind turbine, has a vertical axis of rotation. Battery, generator, and 2 USB chargers are placed in the turbine. Savonius rotor with booster dome, top mounted. Turbine Tornado is compact and can be taken with you on a trip. Assembly and installation take only a few minutes. Tornado captures the wind's power and converts it into electricity. The built-in battery is efficiently charged by the wind. Built-in 12,000 milliamp hours battery is wind charged efficiently. Tornado folds up quickly and easily and charges 2 devices at the same time. Tornado Turbine is your reliable companion. 1/4 inch standard thread allows the use of accessories.
Make sure you check out Tornado Wind Turbine on their Indiegogo page in the link below.
Kelly, you're a husband, you're a father, entrepreneur, speaker, coach. One of the coolest people that I know, man. I'm so thankful for you, dude. Thank you for your time, brother.
Thank you for being here, man. And I tell you, you saved my butt with Eddie George. Most of your listeners probably don't know, but I was in a panic. I got the opportunity to interview one of my heroes from growing up, Eddie George, running back, legendary running back of the Houston Oilers at the time, and now it's the Tennessee Titans. He hasn't made it into the Hall of Fame yet, but I didn't have any of my equipment. And Erik said, no challenge. I'll get you my password. I'll get you into Riverside. And you made it happen. You made a dream happen. And you didn't even, like I said, thank you. You're like, no problem. I got you. It wasn't even a question. So I just want to, that's just a testament to your character, man, and who you are. And I thank you. And my son thanks you and the world. Thanks
Oh
you.
man, I appreciate it, dude. That was so much fun, man. There was a little hectic. It was a little hectic at first, but I'm glad that it worked out, dude.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was a dream come true, man.
Come on, man. Now, I like to kick my show off a little bit differently now because I've shifted the focus a little bit to really deep dive into the journey with Jesus and men's journey and how they balance life and keep that relationship with God. And as I was reading through your website, and I mean, your mission is to utilize the gifts that God's given you to ultimately give glory to his name. What would you say is your gifts?
To find out what other people's gifts are and then just be really excited about them.
Come on. Yeah, dude. I love that, dude. So good. So good, man.
I really believe that, God just gave me the gift of being an amplifier. So
Yeah.
being able to go in and shift a vibe in a room, the way that people feel, that's been a thing since I was a kid. And, it's not something I take credit for. And it's something that he constantly lets me know it was a gift. It was given to you. You can give it to other people, but I'm always going to take the credit. And so that's been where God has kept my my relationship with him in line. He's like, look, if you ever get to a point where you tell people it's you, I'm going to take it away. And I'm like, man, couldn't you just give me a little bit of shine? He's like, nope,
Right.
yeah. I need the glory all the time.
Come on. Oh, it's so good, dude. You and I, we've had many conversations over the years, and I'll never forget the one time that you invited me to go to your house to watch the sunrise in the morning. And I walked through your neighborhood. They probably thought I was coming to steal things. It was 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever time. It was pitch black. And here's this dude. I have no idea where I'm going. And just going down to the beach and reading our Bibles and having conversations with God and you that morning, man, it was a life changer for me. I'll never forget that moment. But for you, like, when did you surrender your life to Jesus? And what was there something that prompted you to take that step?
I mean, my dad was crazy when when I was like in fourth grade, and he found Jesus.
Okay.
We went to he was doing like personal development stuff, and then they had a pastor there, and he was at this big seminar that my dad couldn't afford, but they took his money anyway,
Sure.
and they right, personal development, right? So he went. There was a pastor, Reverend Hale, I remember him, and this guy was just preaching, and my dad was like, I found Jesus. And my dad turned his life around like in an instant, and he just
Wow.
became this like on fire guy. But when you say wow, it wasn't a good thing at the
Okay.
time. I mean, it was crazy. And
Yeah.
my dad like changed the dog's name from Bandit to Elijah because he said the dog had a bad spirit because of his name. Like,
Whoa.
my dad went off the deep end. But my mom was a prayer warrior. She was constantly just telling us, just have a relationship with God, like have a personal relationship with the Lord. And that's it. You don't have to do all these things that people are telling you to do. And then I remember them saying at church, Eric, you got to give your heart to the Lord. I said, I ain't giving my life to nobody. That's crazy. Like, I'm in fourth grade. I'm 10 years old. You know what I mean? And then I remember just about to hop into the shower, and I was like, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And, fourth, fifth grade, my dad had the actual date to it. It was sometime around 86. And, I gave my heart to the Lord, but I was that kid hiding my head under the covers while my rest of my body was sticking out, thinking that no one could see me.
Sure.
And, that started it. But, it comes in stages, man. I mean, it
Yeah.
comes in stages with old age. So
For sure. For sure, man. I mean, and what would you say, like, in what ways has your relationship with Jesus really shaped the way that you approach mentorship and leadership within your business?
I mean, for me, it was um, the way I explained it one time was, if you go to a party and you really, really, really get after it, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to work the next day. When you sweat, everyone could tell what you drank the night before if you drank enough of it, right?
Totally.
And so we've all been around that guy at work that's like
Yep.
sweating profusely, and you're like, wow, I'm getting drunk from your sweat.
Yeah.
And what I found in my relationship with the Lord is there's so many times that I was not consuming enough to sweat it out my pores.
Mhm.
And so in my leadership, in my business, in my mentorship, all these things, I was trying to tell people stuff that I hadn't consumed enough of to be able to have it pour out of my pores.
Yeah.
And when God got me with that one, he just let me know there needs to be an inlet to me. And when there's an inlet, the outlet will not be conscious. When I don't need to be conscious to tell someone about Jesus.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
It's one of those things where if I intake it enough, if I have a relationship with him and I spend enough time with him, and I spend time in his word, and I read the word, and the word starts to read me, then it starts to sweat out my pores. And that's what I would ask every one of your listeners is, if people aren't asking you about the Lord or asking you about your leadership or then you're going to be forcing it on them. And then you're going to become that dude on the corner with the sign saying, you're going to go to hell. And nobody likes that dude anyway. Don't
Totally.
be that dude. Don't
Don't
be
be
that dude.
Those sign guys, man, they just drive me nuts, man.
Oh man.
It's crazy.
Well, they probably have good hearts, like
Right.
somewhere in there. But my non-Christian friends come to me and they're like, hey man, I know you're a Christian, right? I respect it. I love you, all the stuff. I don't believe that stuff, but and my buddy pulled me aside. He said, I just want to let you know that Christian people turn more people away from God than anybody else. And I was like, tell me more.
Yeah.
And he said, because most of the time it comes with judgment. Most of the time it comes with something that they're projecting towards someone. And again, it goes to a point where literally, if you drink enough rum, you will sweat rum.
Yeah. Wow.
I want to get to a point in my life where I literally sweat Jesus. But the only way is to be able to spend time where no one else will see me, from no ritual, from no religion, nobody praising me, anything like that. It's just that time, like you and I spent at the beach, that's going to be the thing that causes it to sweat out my pores. But it takes a long period of time, man.
Yeah. Man, so good. I remember there was a time where there was a guy who was a sign holder, was like, you're going to hell. And I was walking in downtown Seattle, and interesting thing was was fairly new to the faith in my early 20s, walked past this guy, and I just felt this Holy Spirit go, dude, you need to go talk to this guy. And I did flipped a U-turn, and I went up to that guy and I said, hey man, how did you come to know the Lord? And he told me, oh, this guy mentored me, and he gave me to know the Lord. And I said, so it wasn't someone standing on a corner telling people they're going to hell, right? And he said, nope. And I said, okay. And I just walked away. And then he put the sign down and walked away. I don't know if it was just this weird prompting. I was like, man, what a crazy thing.
That's awesome, man.
Man, I mean, balancing like business and family and faith and just the busyness of life can just get crazy. But how do you make sure that your relationship with Jesus and your family remains a priority in that busyness of life?
I never balance. I don't believe in it. I just believe in being 100% wherever you're at.
Right.
There's seasons where God is going to get your mind focused on money. That's okay. He's going to get you focused on, I mean, he said it in Proverbs, I believe it was 12, or it was 11, where he talked about taking care of your family. That's one of the things that it says in his word. And so there's time. So for me, I don't believe in balance. I just believe in introducing my family to my business, introducing my business to my family. And so that way, what happens is my family, there's times where it's going to be unbalanced, like in a traditional sense, like there's going to be times where it's unbalanced. There's going to be times where I'm 100% in business and maybe I'm not doing as much with the family. There's times where I'm 100% with the family and not with the business. But my wife told me like this. She said, a relationship will never be balanced. There's times where I'll give 100% and you'll give nothing. There'll be times where I'll give 70%, you'll give 30. There'll be times where you give 90%, I'll give 10, but it still comes up to 100. And we've got to be okay in that situation. And some people, I mean, this is not me teaching anyone. So this is just me telling you about my situation. But I believe that if you simply like, I'll show you here. Let me do this. Hold on. It's like this.
Yeah.
This is what we think is balance, right? So we take this balance and we say, okay, my family's here and my business is here. So I do 50% in both. What do you get on a test? We can get 50% in both.
You get an F.
Yeah. And that's what most of us get in life because we're trying to balance. Watch this. What God just said is just turn the bottle over. When you're at work, just be at work.
Yeah.
When you're with your family, just be with your family. When you're at church, just be at church. And what will happen is when we honor that situation, we're 100% in that situation, we're showing the likeness of Jesus anyway, because what was Jesus doing every single day? He was just present and he just had his daily bread. He wasn't like, oh, wow, I need to balance the Holy Spirit, God, and all of you guys. Then he would have been given 33, 33, 33, and he definitely would have failed. He just said, when I'm here with you and you're broke and you're poor and you're asking for prayer, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spit on the ground, put some mud in your eyes and heal you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of times as humans, we just make it a little bit too complicated. Literally take it like this, right? And so one day I came home and it was like 2 o'clock in the day. I had just been at work. So I came home and I'm a dad, a business owner, and a husband, right?
Yeah.
So I came home and I was like, oh man, I was just at work. It's 2 o'clock. I turned to my wife. She was doing dishes. I was like, baby, it's time to be husband. And she looked at me and she was like, it's 2 o'clock in the day. The kids are home. It's time to be dad. I was like, it's so much more fun to be husband. She said, she said, there's no lock on the door and the kids are awake. You need to be dad. I was like, well, give him some Benadryl. Let me be husband. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can turn the bottle over, if you can turn that bottle over every single time you walk into a situation right now, Erik, I can tell you this. I'm not a dad. I'm not a husband. I'm not a business owner. I'm not a speaker. I'm not a podcaster. All I am is Erik's guest on his podcast right now. That's it. Cool. And if I could do that, you'll feel a little bit different. We'll stay engaged. We'll have a better friendship. And you know what? My family will benefit from it anyway.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love that, man. So good. Dude, I want to talk about your book. It's an amazing book. People need to go get it. It's The Vibe. I absolutely love this book. Now I'm a highlighter when I read books. And I don't know if you can see this, but half this book is highlighted in yellow. Like
what were some of the things that you highlighted, man?
Bro, like one of the nuggets that I really liked out of there was opportunity will generally come wrapped in something that is not desirable. And I was going to ask you about that. Like, that's just one of them. But like I highlighted so much, but from that little nugget, their opportunity will generally come wrapped in something that is not desirable. Can you deep dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I just had it happen the other day, man.
Okay.
So we have salons and we've had salons for years. We ended up selling the company, but we kept one that's a creative space.
Okay.
I only take care of people that I've taken care of for like 20, 30 years. And so it's a very select clientele. So I don't take people that walk in off the street, but I was in casual clothes coming up to produce a podcast, and I walked through the creative space on the way to the studio, and there was a guy that I had met at Secret Knock, because I'm the co-host of Secret Knock.
Yep.
And I had interviewed him there. He's like, "Hey, Kelly, I Googled haircut in Carlsbad, and you guys came up first." And generally, I'm dressed casually. We don't take appointments. Generally, I would just be like, "I'm good. You know, I got something to do." And God just put it on my heart, take care of him. And so I said, "Can you hold on for 1 second?" So I ran back. I dressed in black. I ran back to the house. It's like 5 minutes from here.
Yeah.
I came back into the creative space and I set him up and I cut his hair. And we had this amazing conversation. Well, I've got the Vibe Room, as you know. So the Vibe Room is on July 23rd. It's a live version of the podcast. We start talking and he's like, "Oh, well, I would like to come." And I said, "Well," and he's like, "Well, I'll either buy tickets if you want me to, or sponsorship, whatever you want me to do." And I said, "Wow, this is incredible." He's like, "Actually, I would really love to sponsor it." So from this haircut of me doing something that I've done for 30 years, and I knew I could make him look good. I knew that, but it wasn't my focus that day. And God said, like, "Here's an opportunity," but he didn't say like, "Here's an opportunity for a mate." Like, he became one of the principal sponsors of the Vibe Room.
Wow.
And so God didn't say like, "Hey, if you do this thing, I'll give you this." No, he was like, "Look, I'm going to give you this little crumb, but if you eat it, it will lead to this." And it goes back to those little tiny inch stones. God brings a vision to us, right?
Yeah.
But then he puts inch stones in place. And if we'll follow the inch stones, not the milestone, the inch stone. And this is where, for me, literally, it was not wrapped in the situation that I thought. Little did I know. But now, guess what? This guy, Aaron, is actually going to be flying back every single 2 weeks from Phoenix. He's going to fly in every 2 weeks from Phoenix to get his haircut. And I'm very outlandish as far as my price for a haircut. So
Sure.
I'm not cheap at all. And he's going to be flying in every 2 weeks. Plus, he's going to be the principal sponsor of the Vibe Room. And we're going to work on a partnership as we move forward. So
Come on.
but God can bless in Proverbs 10:22. If you look at it, he says that I will bring blessing without laborious toil. When we focus on him, he's the best PR agent. He's the best marketer, and he is the greatest headhunter in the world. But he just wants the credit because he doesn't share his glory with anybody.
Man. Dude, what a rad opportunity, a little nugget right there, man. What a cool story how that is. I mean, talk about your event here. You got July 23rd. I believe it's sold out, but you bring in a ton of awesome speakers. I'm yet to come there, but I'm going to make it to it. I'm making you a promise right here on the air. I will be at one of those events.
Of course.
But man, let's talk about this event. Like, what's this event about? Who's this for, man?
So for me, like so many people just wanted to meet the people from the podcast, like when I would do it. So I never looked at the podcast as just the podcast. So what I did is I started to look at it because my friend Larry Namer, who is the creator or the founder of the E Entertainment Network, he told me a story one time when he started the E Entertainment Network. He had 24 hours of airtime and he needed to fill it. So he just made up silly ideas, and one of them became Talk Soup. And as we know, that became history, right?
Yeah.
So he was telling me this story, and Larry's just a really cool guy from New York, and he's telling me this, and I was like, oh, So I started thinking about the podcast, and like, could I not think about it like, oh, this is a show with a niche and all this stuff? I just said, like, could I create shows? So I created a show on the podcast that is You Have to Meet My Friends, which I go live and then I call my friends randomly. A lot of times they're at work and they're pissed off because I call them and then I ask them, "Do you want to be on the podcast someday?" And they'll say yes. And I say, "Well, you're live right now. You want to get off?" Because they won't get off because they'll seem like a jerk. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah, totally.
we have these random conversations. It's hilarious. Right.
Come on.
Then I do a
That's
thing
awesome.
called inch stones. Right. And inch stones is just the daily, the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day. And then I
Yeah.
do interviews like what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But when I started off, I was just doing the interviews and so many people asked, like, I'd love to meet the people. And, you know, my wife and I had watched my next guest needs no introduction by David Letterman. And I told my wife, I want to start a show like that. I'd love to do a show like that.
Yeah.
And so as the podcast progressed and people wanted to meet the people, I created a live version of the podcast in a 60s speakeasy jazz club. And it's more about the people in the room than it is about the people on the stage.
Sure.
And so we brought a musical element into it. I generally have one or two people that I interview, and like one of the last ones I had Larry Namer, who is the founder of the E Entertainment Network. I had Lonnie Paxton, 3-time Super Bowl champion. I had the CEO and partner of Michael Mina, one of the largest celebrity chefs in the world. But you get up close and personal with these. There's only about 65 to 70 people allowed in the room.
Yeah.
So it's super intimate. You get to talk with the people on stage. There's a ton of connection. And honestly, I just wanted to have a really cool event.
Come on.
That's what it was.
Yep. Man. So good. I have a funny story about Larry. Actually, the very first prosperity camp that I went to, when I had my big beard and could barely afford to get to Greg's house for a prosperity camp, staying at the ghettoest Motel 6 down the way, where I was warned, like, oh, you're staying at that Motel 6? Man, I'd be watching your back. Like, but I remember walking into prosperity camp. I didn't know anybody. I had met Greg just briefly, like through a podcast, right? And here's this older guy sitting by himself in the corner. And I'm like, oh man, I'm nervous to go talk to people. And I just grabbed a cup of coffee and I sat down next to this older guy. We just started chatting, and he's so rad, so cool. And at the end of the conversation, it was like, because us men, we don't ask for names till the end of the conversation or until we're leaving, right? And so I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm Erik, you know? And he goes, oh, I'm Larry, and I'm the founder of E Entertainment. I was like, shut up, dude. Like, what a cool dude, man. It was one of the cool experiences for Prosperity Camp for me. I want to talk about your podcast because you interviewed a guy that I actually met. He would never remember that I met him, but you've done over 450 episodes of your podcast, including Master G from the Sugarhill Gang. Now, I met him. I was living in Seattle, and the whole entire Sugarhill Gang was there having dinner. And I was drinking a beer, and I looked down. I looked at a picture. I'm like, that's the Sugarhill Gang. And I walked down, and I kindly interrupted their dinner. One of the guys was not too happy about it, but I said, hey guys, I appreciate you. I love your music. Can I get an autograph? And they're like, yeah, sure. No problem. And they signed it for us. But like, what was that experience like for you to talk to the master, man, Master G there, man?
Well, it was a godfather of hip hop, right? So
Totally.
when I look at that, he was absolutely amazing, tremendous guy. But the backstory was, I think, more important.
Yeah.
He was a guy who, you know, at the height of the career, he didn't like the terms that he got from the record deal. So he stood up for himself, and they took his name. They took his name, Master G. They took his the Sugarhill Gang away from him, and he was left to sell books door to door while his group and song was the largest song in the world.
Yeah.
But what he did, and this is where God brings opportunity, not wrapped in the way that you think it should be wrapped.
Yeah.
The opportunity for him was selling things door to door where he was embarrassed, but it ended up helping him to understand business and build a $1 million business that would help him in the future to be able to buy back the Sugarhill name.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. That was the first hip hop that I mean, he's the first like commercial hip hop. And that's my dad. I remember my dad letting me listen to the Sugarhill Gang. And so it was a nostalgic thing for me. And I love him as a person. Master G as a person is an unbelievable human.
Yeah. Man, I love that episode that you had with him, and his story is unbelievable. Knocking on the doors, man. And I mean, I was like, dude, I mean, I was sucked into that episode, man. It was so good, dude. Before we end here today, I want to ask the question, like, what's been the greatest lesson in life that you've learned so far in your journey?
That's a loaded one, man.
It is loaded for sure.
I think it happens every single day, right? And it depends on the particular, like I just learned yesterday that I need to be better with my time. My son was getting ready to sign up for fall football, and I procrastinated, and they closed the registration. And right now he's not in FNL. And he loves football more than anything. And the reason why he's not going to play this season, if he doesn't play this season, is because of his dad, and his dad saying, I'll do it tomorrow. And so that was a huge lesson, but I just think that God is every day. He's just giving me that little bit of daily bread. Yesterday, the biggest part was just building people. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to teach people how to build people, and I'm going to teach people how I should build them. And then I got to the end of the proverb in Proverbs 13, and it was like, no, dummy. These are all the things I want you to do. And if you do these, then it will sweat out your pores, and people will be built because of the things that you do, not the things that you say, because things are caught, not taught.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, man. That's awesome, dude. Man, I love catching up with you, Kelly. I love your vibe. I love everything about you, dude. You're an absolute world changer. You're my brother, man. And I have just enjoyed this conversation again. Thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to jump on the show again, man.
You're incredible, man.
I appreciate you.
Hey,
awesome.
Erik, tell your listeners this. I want to tell you guys, because he won't tell you. The greatest thing that you could do for Erik in every bit of everything. Number one, listen or watch the podcast. Number two, comment and subscribe to it. Number three, share it with a friend. This is the greatest thing as a podcaster. This is the greatest thing that you can do, but most podcasters are not going to beat their chest to tell you. I'm going to tell you though, that is the greatest compliment that you can give Erik in the world. And this guy is unbelievable. And he's creating such a great impact for so many people. And he's doing the right things for the right reasons, and the right things keep happening. So share it, comment on it, subscribe to it, and enjoy it.
Come on, man. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you, dude.
Hey, if you've ever thought about starting a podcast but unsure where to go, you need to go check out erikallenmedia.com. Click on the resources tab there. I will walk you through how to start, launch, and run a podcast. I've recorded over 500 interviews since 2017, and I want to help you launch your podcast. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you catch every show when I drop them. Thanks again. Keep changing the world.